Welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. On this channel, we bring you some great content from inside and outside of the squared circle. We will go through and offer some in-depth analysis of the biggest events of the year, as well as bringing you exclusive interviews with some of the industry's biggest names. There will also be live show reviews, in-depth features, and podcasts. So make sure you give that subscribe button a slam so you don't miss any of the action.
Okay, hello and welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. What is... Oh, no! Why are you starting off like that? I can't even find mine from the previous year. Hold on.
Look after it. Unbelievable.
I do look after it. It's just after I lost this season, I was a little bit... There we go. Hold on.
Mine's bigger than yours, Scott.
Whatever. Okay, right. Anyway, welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. If you're new here, thanks for joining us. If you are returning, as always, thank you for that as well. What we're doing here, we are basically doing our build-up show where we talk all about the upcoming event that's on tonight, the PLE, as they call them these days. WrestleMania Backlash. Once again, I've ranted about that last year, and I've ranted about that this year in the recap. Well, not the recap. We haven't got there yet. The preview and predictions episode. If you haven't seen that already, basically, we've already done the main bulk of our predictions in that episode, but Lucas has yet to do here. So what we're going to do here, we're going to go through those. Me and Rob can't change anyway. We're locked in. Dan can't change. He's not joining us at the moment, obviously, but he can't change either. He's locked in, and what we'll do, we'll go through, get Lucas's ones. We'll take some comments and things like that, and just basically get in the mood really for the for the premium live event. How are you boys feeling about this one? You don't sound thrilled, mate. You don't sound too happy. Hold on, we got a yo from Horns Boy. Horns Boy.
Sorry, I don't know, because we were saying this on the predictions. It's so many just rehashed matches from Mania. Obviously, it explains the WrestleMania Backlash, but yeah, I don't know. There's a few changes, but not much. And the matches that are changed, I'm interested for. But the ones that we've already seen, I'm not really bothered about, other than maybe one or two. So I feel a bit cheated out of a PLE.
I think this is why I just always felt Extreme Rules at least fit in this slot, because it was their way to do rematches, but to have to elevate the story somehow. And at least, if nothing more, I meant you got to see tables and chairs and cages and all that kind of stuff. But now it just, with this, obviously this POE just basically being essentially WrestleMania Night 3, just a month late. About the star appeal of obviously being able to have Vince McMahon, Stone Cold, Steve Austin, and all the Hall of Fame people on that big scale feel, obviously, that we were treated to with WrestleMania last month. It just feels really odd, and it just feels like they're not trying, which is very odd. But I think it is just a case of the bigger events in the summer, that are coming, are all stadium events. There'll be massive scale, obviously, by the time we get through to Money in the Bank, to SummerSlam, to obviously Clash at the Castle.
True. It's gonna be a big summer. You're right. Yeah, so maybe this is kind of just to get you through to that stage,
But I just think it could. There's a lot that could be done on this card that's not being done.
I really hope it's one of those where we look back and go, "Oh, the card didn't seem that excited, but they really delivered." Because that's what I'm holding out for. Because I'm the same as you guys. I'm just thinking, there's nothing that makes me go, "Can't wait to watch tonight." And the only thing that kind of would, there's nothing on the line for, which is the 6-man. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So, bit of a shame in that one, but yeah, hopefully, just the match alone will kind of, because I reckon that will probably be a good match. To be fair.
This feels like, you remember that TLC pay-per-view from, I think, about 2016, 2017, where the most famous moment of the show was obviously Kurt Angle joining the Shield. When both Roman Reigns and Bray Wyatt, got sick and got taken off the show, and they rejigged the card about kind of on the day or as close to the show day as possible. And that was just a really, really good show. But before that, it was one which people weren't really looking forward to, because obviously the TLC gimmick, obviously, had kind of run its course by this point. There was that weird Bray Wyatt pretending he was Sister Abigail stuff going on, and then wanting to do some sort of Halloween match with him, the Demon versus Sister Abigail, and no one wanted it. No one wanted it to happen. And then, to be fair, it was probably thankful that Bray got sick, and obviously they had to change it. And so Finn faced AJ Styles, and you saw the excellent 6-man. So I mean, it has that kind of vibes, or like, or even the pay-per-views that followed, kind of WrestleMania 30, and 31. Like obviously this is before the brand split days, but when they were having to challenge themselves to keep coming up with big attraction matches, and kind of gambling on things. And so they gambled obviously on doing the Shield versus Evolution in 2014, and they had 2 fantastic 6-man tag matches. Back-to-back pay-per-views, and obviously the Shield won both of those, which was huge at the time. Because obviously, Triple H not really known for taking many losses.
Yeah, no, it was like a real passing of the torch as far as stables go, wasn't it? So
yeah, but like now, I mean, are we seeing this now? But it's just a case of we have. Well, yes, they can produce good stuff like that. On one hand, but on the other hand, where I'm like, this company did give us that backlash that had people walking out halfway through because it was so boring and long. I think the main event of that was Samoa Joe actually versus Roman Reigns. People just weren't digging it. The same company that gave us, was it Over Limit? What pay-per-view was it? The one that they did, I think it was Payback or something they did after one of the Saudi shows, and it was just awful. They barely drew about 3,000, 4,000 fans, to a pay-per-view because again, one of those just nothing at stake, events that they decided to do.
It does kind of feel like a glorified house show. if it didn't have an I Quit match, maybe, because that does kind of stipulations like that do make it feel a bit more important. But yeah, the rematches, I think we kind of mentioned it on the predictions one as well, talking about, you briefly mentioned at least, Rob, the WrestleMania Revenge Tour that we used to get. Yeah. It kind of feels like that kind of thing's going on. It's a really strange one. I mean, again, I feel like it's a card that could deliver, but at the moment, there's nothing making me go, I can't wait for tonight. Go on. I
feel like we said the same thing last year, because I'm just looking at the card from last year's one. I mean, you had Sheamus versus Ricochet, Rhea Ripley versus defeated Asuka and Charlotte Flair. Yeah. Rey and Dominic versus Ziggler and Rude. Priest defeated The Miz. Bianca Belair defeated Bayley. Bobby Lashley defeated Strowman and McIntyre Drew. And then, I mean, it was weird to think that headlining that was Roman Reigns versus he defeated Cesaro in a
wow. Was that a year ago now?
Wow. A year ago. Like, it was and it's weird because it wasn't a bad show. And that wasn't stacked, and it's kind of stacked the same way this year.
Yeah, it is. Even that does sound like a house show, a good house show, but it does feel, it's a strange one. And again, this 6-man not having much on the line for is a bit of a weird one as well. We've got a quick comment here from Mobile Legends. What time is the fight between Roman and Drew? Of course, that is 2 of those are in the 6-man. Not sure what time it'll be on. I assume it's going to be main eventing just by the caliber of talent that's in it, as soon as there is no world title match. So I assume for us over here in the UK, around 4 a.m. Great. But wherever you are in the world, I'm not sure what time that would be, but I'm sure towards the end of the show. Another quick comment I want to get to here again from Hornsboy. Once again, thanks for your comments. Ronda retirement incoming. I feel like it's a bit soon, and we've kind of gone over this quite a bit in a prediction episode already, so it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts on this, Lucas. But I personally just cannot see Ronda Rousey saying the words "I quit." So maybe that's what we'll do. Actually, we'll go with your predictions for that one first, I think, because I think it's a good topic to start off with. Ronda Rousey facing the SmackDown Women's Champion in Charlotte Flair, who is looking to retain, and to do that, she would have to make the baddest woman on the planet say "I quit," which I just really can't see happening. But yeah, Lucas, what do you think?
I don't know. I think this might be main event, actually. I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe the 6-man goes on a little bit earlier, potentially. It's a bit harder for an I Quit match, isn't it? I guess.
Yeah.
But anyway, in terms of, I mean, there's kind of flutterings about Ronda maybe being done, and it just seems essentially the general narrative people have of Ronda, from the wrestling media anyway, is that she doesn't like being in WWE, or that she doesn't like the fans. Whatever it is, she's unhappy. They're obsessed with her being unhappy. But yeah, and it might be that she's just taking the money, but you know, she's been a long time out of the company, a long time, and obviously she got injured, she had a baby, and you know all that stuff. That all happened. But you know, to kind of come back, if it is for the money, like, you know, it's part of the business end of the day. It's a wrestling business. People need to remember that. The wrestling side is one side, but the business side, someone like her, she's able to do good business with this company. Yeah, but I don't see her saying those words. The only thing I could foresee is a similar situation to what happened with The Rock and Mankind.
That's exactly what we said. Yeah,
shenanigans, basically.
Yeah, but who does that if that's the case? Because that feels, when it was The Rock, it was the corporation. You know, everyone was in cahoots. It feels a strange move for a singular kind of solo heel wrestler to just have planned all this. You kind of need someone, at least in kayfabe terms, to press play, you know. But as again, I mentioned on the predictions, is the same company that Finn Balor has the demon fall off the top of the rope and never ever explain it. So, you know, I think we give them too much credit at times that they're not going to do this kind of crazy stuff and it need explaining. But yeah, so that's the only way I see it happening as well, because the other kind of scenarios that they you know, like sometimes, and I mentioned this before as well, when they change up stipulations, they pretend this is the way it's always been anyway. Why are you asking questions? And rather than saying I quit, it will be like tapping out or something like that. But I think that's probably even worse. To have Ronda Rousey tap is something else that is quite protected, you know. So we got to be real, like, you know, yeah, Brock loses every now and then, but Brock was in the industry a long time ago. I think to have Ronda, the whole appeal to Ronda is she's the former UFC. Ronda Rousey, you know, like, so tough one.
Yeah, I can't see a situation really where she would agree to this match in a scenario where she was losing clean. So I definitely would rule that out. So I'd rule out, or even just losing in a situation where she actually taps out or says the words "I quit." I think I'd rule those out. Shenanigans, I'm kind of ruling out too, actually, because I just think, I don't think they're going to want to go back to kind of poking us with that again. Like, they actually had a long period where they didn't do this. You know, like, there was a time period, again, that period actually around whatever that god awful show was from, like, I think it was 2018 or whatever. The one that had that mixed tag, I think that was Extreme Rules, but the one before that, I think. Definitely, because I think it was Becky Lynch faced Lacey Evans, and then when Rollins was that god awful babyface for so long. And no one wanted to be babyface because he's just much better, obviously, villain, as we're seeing, and we'll get to him obviously in due course. But yeah, I don't foresee Shenanigans. I think it's just this card, like we're saying, like, I just can't see where they're going with it. Like, is it going to be just because obviously at the moment it just seems like they're wanting content. You know, they're wanting content. This just fulfills it. They give us 6 matches where it's all just default, nothing really happens, and then they move on to promoting whatever stuff is next month. Don't know what's next, actually. Is it Extreme Rules next after this?
Is it Money in the Bank?
Or Hell in a Cell?
No, Hell in a Cell. It is Hell in a Cell. Yeah.
Hell in a Cell. Okay. Well, we're most likely to see more rematches of this, let's be real. Hell in a Cell. But yeah, I'm just going with the fact that we keep saying it, you know, we said it time and time again, and it just really much feel that outside of WrestleMania and SummerSlam and the odd kind of bit and piece they might do at a Saudi or bigger house show like MSG, they will play it safe. And they'll play it safe by setting up Ronda Rousey getting hold of the SmackDown Women's Championship off of Charlotte Flair. And that'll be my prediction, that Ronda Rousey will win.
Okay, so you're going Ronda's going to win. I mean, this does another comment here from Hornsboy, basically saying that even having Flair say "I quit" is an interesting story, which is a good point as well, because Flair's been very protected over the years. So to have her say "I quit," they're kind of, you know, it does feel like one of those where you're backing yourself into a corner here. But I think if it was going to be Ronda, if there was ever a time that Ronda was going to do it, it wouldn't be on a throwaway pay-per-view the month after WrestleMania that people aren't excited about. It would be at WrestleMania, you know?
Yeah,
I think if Ronda was going to do that.
This has been set up like this, like the dodgy finish at WrestleMania to set this moment up for her winning it. And then most likely with them retaining it inside Hell in a Cell. That's the kind of that's the story arc that kind of makes sense here.
Yeah.
You know, because that way you kind of get essentially, because they wanted to do Charlotte versus Ronda for like 3 years now, and now we're going to just do 3 shows in a row of it. So that's basically
get your money's worth. Yeah. Well, we've all gone for Ronda. Then you've kind of sealed the deal there. Every single one of us gone for Ronda. If you're not sure what we're talking about in our talk about predictions and stuff like that, it's because we do play for a trophy. I am not the current champion. Rob is. Go on, do you want to show it off again, Rob? This is me from the previous year. Oh, look, he's on the shelf. Look at that.
Shelf, sorry.
I showed you earlier the shelf. It's I need
looking good.
I need to get some more stuff, man. I'm running out of space, but I want to put more stuff up.
Well, you won't get another trophy, that's for sure. Right.
Unbelievable.
Right. So yeah, well, our prediction table resets here, of course. WrestleMania is our kind of finale of our season, the way we see it. The season begins on the next pay-per-view, which is now WrestleMania Backlash tonight, or PLE, I should say. So we're all on 0. So after tonight, we'll be on the road to next WrestleMania, I guess you could say. Right. So let's move into another match now. So let's have a look. What else have we got to talk about? Let's go with the heavy hitters first, eh? Madcap Moss versus Corbin. Madcap Moss versus Corbin. Lucas, where would you like to go with that?
Probably bathroom break.
So Corbin lost at Mania. I mean, it's really tough because you kind of feel that we should be getting behind this kind of match more because it's a new feud, it's a new star they're trying to push in Riddick Moss or Madcap Moss, you know. But it does just feel like it's just nothing, and you know, you can say that about a lot of these people on the roster now, I guess, where it just feels a bit like in terms of this match, this feels like a feud that will continue, like everything does. I don't see it as being a one and done kind of thing. But which way do they go with it? Can Corbin? Yeah, Corbin can lose two in a row, can't he? I think it would be a better option for Madcap Moss to win.
Yeah.
And then if they want Corbin to just get his win back, as they always do, they just do the rematch on SmackDown. And I don't watch Freakin TV, so I don't have to see it.
You'll never see it anyway, yeah.
So, you know, they do that because they're obsessed with these things, aren't they?
Yeah.
Having the rematches, the WrestleMania Backlash rematches, which has to be some sort of oxymoron or something. Because all WrestleMania Backlash is already WrestleMania rematches, and so we're just going further and further down.
Well, until we have Payback again as well.
Yeah, I'll go with Madcap Moss. I mean, look, I'm hoping that they can deliver an interesting take on this. Obviously, I think, you know, like, not to sound, you know, just bring back the positivity side. I think it is good that they are trying to push new people. They have to do it. It's also good that I think someone like that Riddick Moss, like they really kept trying him with different things, didn't they, throughout the kind of pandemic era of programming, where he was obviously part of Raw Underground. They brought him up at one point with Mojo to do stuff. Like way early on, they kept bringing him up and down. It was back and forth. He went back to NXT for a little bit, I think. Then he came back. Yeah, into the main roster. I think this is a real kind of blast. But do you remember when he was managed once, I think, by MVP at one point when MVP was starting his first kind of stable early on in
I can't remember that. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, because remember they gave MVP to Shane Thorne and Brendan Venk very early on in like March, April 2020. A very weird period of Raw because obviously all the main stars obviously were staying at home because obviously what was going on. Yeah. And they obviously picked people that lived in Florida. And it was a case of they had people that obviously NXT based and obviously they just signed MVP. Which was probably a really, really smart decision, by the way. It's really worked out really well.
100%.
For that signing. Yeah. But yeah, like it just feels a bit like they've kept trying with him. He's got something now. let's just give him at least like one win before, like
they kind of take to get shaky legs and let him go again and do something else. Because I think you're right. It's kind of stuck. It's worked this time. I do think people are behind him. For the last few months, every time he's kind of popped up, we've been like, who? What? What's he doing? Who? But I've always enjoyed everything I've seen of him, to be fair. I think every time we do a review, I end up going, well, actually, I remember bashing this match, and then I actually enjoyed it more than I thought. And I reckon this was probably going to be same, to be fair. I think Corbin's been a fantastic performer in the past few years. We speculated a little while ago whether or not the reason why he kicked, End of Days was kicked out was because he was going to go into something bigger and better. And I don't think that's happening just yet. I do think he could go into the main title picture. Might not be the plan, but I think he could. And I think it would be kind of a wise decision to do as well. But I think for me, like what you said about Madcap Moss, basically, we kind of said the same thing on the earlier prediction show of that. This match is surely designed, or this feud at least, is designed to get someone over rather than elevate the other person to the main event. Like Corbin can lose this, and if he is going on to something bigger and better, that process can start after this feud. Whereas this feud is about making Madcap Moss. So I think even with that, I think we all said the same thing. We did. Rob, do you have anything else to add to that? Would you have changed your mind if you could have?
No, I'm still going by the. Can you hear me?
Yeah. All good.
So I have no idea what happened there. No, I still think, as we were saying, this is that point where I think we get unhappy Corbin kind of again or something. And then this is his transition from a silly gimmick to take me as a threat, take me as dominant, take me serious. And that's his progression going upwards to, I guess, a championship, whether that's Roman drops one of them at some point, and then Corbin maybe wins it off of Drew if Roman drops it to Drew. Yeah. It's going to be something along them lines. So I think it's progressive for both of them, and it's a good position for both of them. But unfortunately, the way the booking is at WrestleMania Backlash, I just think it's a bad position for them to be in because of the show it's on. If it was on another show, I don't think it'd be a problem. Because it's on WrestleMania Backlash, everyone's half-hearted about it anyway.
No, that's a good point, actually. But then you'd argue if it wasn't a bigger show, it could get lost in the shuffle. Do you know what I mean? Because when we were talking about WrestleMania, we were talking about I think it was like 14 matches or something. Was it 7 per night? Wasn't there?
Something like that.
And obviously, even one night one wanted to get moved over to night two, ended up being 2 minutes long, whatever long it was. But I think it's so hard, isn't it, to kind of get excited about everything. But I just feel as well, like going back to this card, like thinking about how much variety there was on the Mania card, where there was generally something for everyone. There was obviously your wrestling matches, AJ and Edge. There was obviously the crazy kind of Attitude Era stuff, like with Zayn and Knoxville. You had the McMahon angle to it. You had women in really prominent positions throughout the card on both nights. Great women's matches as well, actually, both nights as well. You had tag team action. You had stuff like Omos and Lashley, which that kind of stuff. But this one just feels like every match is just like
is that what it is then? Is it because they've gone too big? Do we need to? But are we burnt out as fans? Do we need to slow down? But then you think about it, it was over a month ago.
Yeah.
It's not like it was a week later and it's like, kind of take the foot off the gas a bit now. It's a month ago, so you could definitely put on a stellar card. And again, it might still be a really entertaining event. It's just at the moment, looking at the card, it's hard to get excited about some of these matches. And even the ones that do look, just put the names together. AJ Edge, for example. How could you not be excited about AJ Edge? But I'll tell you why, because we saw it last month, and that's the kind of, it is tough. You mentioned MVP quite a bit there, so let's move on to the match that he's got a big kind of say in as well. Of course, we've got Omos facing off against MVP's old running buddy in Bobby Lashley. Now, a bit strange because Lashley seems to be the babyface nowadays, and rightly so for this feud. But obviously, there was that clip the other week where the rope snapped and he was in the UK facing Drew. So I assume he was playing the heel there. It's a bit of a strange thing for Lashley. I'm sure he's not sure whether he's coming or going. But babyface Lashley after a big run, I think makes sense. And Omos again being pushed as this kind of big bad beast. But then what do? Do you strengthen Omos's kind of claim as a newcomer, or do you strengthen the newly turned Bobby Lashley. So once again, we'll go with you, Lucas, since we've done our predictions already, and then we'll kind of bring us back around to some of that afterwards.
Yeah, like I think MVP is essentially an MVP of the company now, essentially, because he's done so well the past couple of years, and it's a tragedy, you know, that obviously because of the TV and the product moves so fast nowadays, that the Hurt business just, that would have been a thing in the 90s and the 80s. That would have been a thing that dominated multiple companies for years if done right. You know, that would have been one of those where you could have had the caliber performers you had in there, and the mouthpiece and MVP, and getting the right promotion behind it. That could have been a group of people who could have changed the industry, I think, you know, in any other era. But it's just the fact of we're in this era now where essentially after a month, people are already bored and want something new. You know, 2 months, 3 months, you know, people are demanding splits and demanding people get released and all, like saying they should go elsewhere, or you know. And so it's criminal that it didn't work out. And obviously this thing of Omos, obviously, there's a thing is, because obviously this card is so boring, I've been thinking of ways that any of the matches can have something fun added to them or something unique. And this one, the only really option is, I guess, if it was a double cross. So obviously, Omos, MVPs are pretending to be with Omos, building him up, but then we'll go with Lashley. But it's a case of I don't see that happening, because why the hell would you want to turn on Omos?
Yeah. And I don't think Omos is strong enough at the moment to be kind of the sympathetic baby face, you know. It's hard to be sympathetic baby face as a giant anyway, but he's still kind of fresh, and people actually really enjoy Lashley. So it'd be really hard to convince people to go, oh, look, he was bad, but he's not that bad after all, because the other guys are even worse. I think it'd be it's an interesting switch. And it's a good theory. I think right now,
I think it'd be too soon, obviously.
Yeah, it feels a
month ago, when obviously it was Raw after Mania, when obviously MVP returned, they started this story, obviously. I think it's hard because it just depends what they're doing with this Roman situation, which I guess we are going to talk about, obviously, a bit later on.
Yeah.
So obviously, please remember to stick around for that, and obviously subscribe and stuff, because we do talk about obviously all the main matches of tonight. But it depends where they're going with that, because obviously it doesn't feel like they're setting anything up for this. They're obviously not setting up for anything tonight. We don't obviously know, but the next PLE is the champ. It won the, you know, because the titles are still separate. You know, I think people are aware of that. Some people aren't aware of that. But even though they have been unified, the WWE still treat them like two different championships. Like Roman Reigns is on the their roster page twice as both.
Right. Okay.
And so they're still separate championships that can be.
So they're more unified in like a boxing sense, where you could collect the titles, but someone could kind of take one of them off you.
Or how Becky did it a few years ago when she was Becky 2 belts, but then she
okay.
I think she lost a SmackDown belt, didn't she?
I guess it's just a worded now, because I mean, and they love using, Heyman loves using the word undisputed anyway. So I think that's what kind of made people think it was like the titles are going to get merged into one.
No, because I think the understanding is that's why they got the 2 belts as well. Because obviously, the last kind of the time has happened, but obviously when Randy Orton had the 2 belts. And they did do on house shows at the time a few defenses of separate championships. So they defend World Heavyweight Championship on certain shows. But they then decided obviously to make 1 belt, out of it by the time we had got, just past WrestleMania and stuff, because it was a case of, it made sense at that time to do that. At this time, we'll get to this a bit later on anyway. But essentially, back to this exact match though, for me, I do feel that essentially they've got to kind of be positioning certain players, I think, to potentially be getting one of those championships. And so there's the Drew option, which is like something which we're going to talk about a bit later on. But you got to argue that they've got to put other people on the table, and obviously Lashley is constantly going to be up there. And again, another kind of pandemic era Thunderdome star, because he was champion. And obviously, even when they came out, and obviously of the Thunderdome, he was the champion. Obviously at WrestleMania last year, and obviously throughout, and he was a champion when they brought the belt back onto. Well, back when they brought crowds back, he was the champion, wasn't he? Off the gate.
Yeah, him and Drew opened up that Mania, didn't they?
Yeah. But and even later on in the year when they brought fans back for like television and stuff, he was the champion. And obviously all the PLA since then, until he lost the belt to Big E. I feel like Omos would be hurt by 2 losses back to back. Especially MVP's going to be in his corner. I don't think it will necessarily hurt Lashley too much because it would feel a bit like when he was US champion. He lost the US championship and then obviously he was able to win the world championship, obviously not long after that, off The Miz. So I think Omos is going to win this one.
Okay, Omos there. And again, I think that is another clean sweep. No danger of us separating the pack with this one. But yeah, Rob, again, I assume you would have stuck to Omos. Nothing big happened this week that's made you think otherwise?
No, not really. Obviously, I would have stuck with Omos. Mainly, though, for the fact that, Lucas, if you remember, Omos lost at Mania. And as you were saying, about 2 losses in a row can affect some people. For example, 4 losses in a row wouldn't affect Seth Rollins, but 4 in a row would affect Omos. At this point.
Yeah, because you can't build an unstoppable giant and he never wins.
Who is always stoppable.
Exactly.
An unstoppable giant.
Yeah. So my thought was Omos will win this one and then they'll have the rubber match and then that's when the stipulation will happen. As we were saying, it'll be if they done it in a cell. Scott said about maybe if they had a smaller. Do you remember the smaller cell? So Omos looked massive inside it. But yeah, something
along this big one. I think Omos can just go like that. Just able to climb up the top, one step, just step up.
But yeah, that was my thinking. So I think Omos will win. So it's 1 apiece, and then a rubber match will be either in a cell or there'll be a stipulation of some sort. I mean,
think he's too fresh to put in the cell, though, really, isn't he? So
yeah, MVP on the pole match, maybe.
MVP on the pole, yeah.
Shark Cage.
yeah.
Something like that. Sell toy sets. What toys are coming out? Let's have a look. What toys are coming out?
True. Yeah. We should.
This booking. This is the problem with these feuds, though. The fact that, in my opinion, I still just think this should have been, the big moment at Mania was obviously seeing Omos get knocked off his feet. Well, they already did the big moment, but they had Omos get knocked off his feet for the first time ever on the Raw before Mania, which would have got a much bigger pop if it had been on the payoff, obviously, of the match itself. But fair enough, they decided to let that one go early. Then, obviously, the big thing and the shock of obviously Lashley winning at Mania, which obviously that was a big pop, that was a big moment. Why not rest Omos for like a month, couple of months or whatever, have him come back and be that monster with someone else? Because now you're in a situation, they put themselves into this corner now where essentially if Omos loses, he now looks silly, especially with having obviously MVP as his manager. If they do a turn, another double cross of MVP now going back to the other side, it also looks silly because he's not strong enough to go on his own in a baby face. And it's a case of, if he is someone at the company are meant to be positioning to be like their big guy, remember, they got rid of Braun Strowman to keep him. They decided very clearly that Braun Strowman's, 7-figure contract was not like what they wanted to do, and they chose Omos. And they even got rid of other giants they've had, since then as well. Like Giant Zangier, who was one of the Indian wrestlers they signed at one point, who again was over 7 foot tall, big guy. They were gonna obviously at one point push. They got rid of him. Omos is the WWE giant, and they've got to book him like it. And so I think he would really be hurt by this loss, like really. Because especially because he spent so much time with AJ, and especially how impressive he looked, at WrestleMania, last year against New Day, essentially making them wrestle a handicap match for the tag team championships, which was so bizarre. But then we've seen this before. I mean, look at Kozlov. He started off so strongly, back in the late 2000s.
Joke character in the end, wasn't he? Yeah.
And then within 2 years, a fun tag team nonetheless. Santino
yeah.
Like anything funny. But yeah, he went from essentially a top of all monster, beating the jobbers, beating everyone up, going through even like the upper mid card talent on SmackDown, and then obviously reaching his peak and lost his streak, and then was a comedy act. Tensai, again, meant to be the big guy coming in after. Yeah,
that one happened even quicker. Tensai,
even Great Khali. I mean, the minute he started losing.
And Big Show as well. Big Show.
I don't know if he had a big run though, Khali. He had quite a successful run. Like, I mean, as much as people were kind of, jibbing him at the Hall of Fame and stuff, and like saying, whatever. But he had a big run. Like, he was feuding with the Undertaker. He was world champion. He was on pay-per-views. Like, he faced John Cena. Like, they
did present him very, very well.
Yeah.
It weren't believable at times.
Yeah.
But they didn't back down, did they, for a long time with that?
Year and a half where they went, you are like, actually great. You are actually the great Khali. And, we endured some of that stuff. I still maintain that his match against Cena actually pretty decent. I think that was that. Was that the American Bash, or was that?
I was thinking great. Yeah,
I think it was about American Bash. Someone will think whatever. But
someone knows. Someone knows
what I'm thinking about. I don't, but yeah, I feel we've done it before with the big guys.
Yeah,
and it will be one of those things where we pinpoint if he was to lose tonight. And in a year's time, and again, I'm not wishing this on anyone, touch every word that he's not released. But in a year's time, if he's releasing out the company, I'll pinpoint back to this moment in his video and say, it's because of this loss. He couldn't come back from 2 back-to-back losses. Yes, against a main eventer. Yes, against a former world champion. Against all of this. But if he can't win on WrestleMania Backlash, is he really going to be the guy who we can believe is one day going to step up? Well, step down, I guess. Step up to, Roman Reigns and say, I fancy having a shot at the Universal or WWE Championship at another event. And the answer to that is no, in my opinion. I can't believe that guy. Lashley has credibility, of course, and being a former world champion and being in the business for a long time. He's been a world champion in other promotions too. Omos, not proven. So
that's it. Yeah, losing to Lashley, like you say, it's not a bad thing. Like, anyone could lose to Lashley, and in theory, not look bad because Lashley should beat most of the roster. But when you're presented as clearly as they're trying to make him be presented as, a giant that's unstoppable, and you should fear him. And even though Lashley's big and bad himself, he's not quite Omos level. That's what they're trying to kind of put across. So if they don't pull the trigger with it and they make Lashley win, as much as I like Lashley and I'm a fan of Lashley, it would seem counterproductive for Omos's kind of career, basically, and especially now that you say you got MVP on your side as well. Like, there's no reason, even if you go down a shenanigan route, which, a big guy, you could say, arguably shouldn't need that, or maybe that kind of damages them in some sense, but it's still better than them losing, basically. So,
right.
It would be a shame if sounds weird to say, shame if Lashley won, because again, actually absolutely love Lashley. Speaking of which, check out our interview on this channel when I had a little chat with the man.
Yeah, that's coming.
Talking about his first WWE run and the difference between that and, of course, his most recent that he's flying on at the moment, and has been, as you can see there, talked about Hurt Business. And the Lesnar match, of course, did happen, but at this point it hadn't. So, but you can hear his little dig towards Lesnar in that, which is quite fun.
It's Scott, put it back up again one more time. It's we just need to meme it, and it's find yourself someone the same way Scott looks at Lashley.
How could you not be impressed? Look at the guy.
I mean, his muscles have got muscles.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
his muscles are the size of your head.
He's mid-40s as well, which is insane.
Yeah. And what a run again! Like, we touched on it in the interview, but what a run he's been on. And again, any other time I'd probably be saying, I hope he doesn't lose, because I always worry about him slipping down the card. But in this sense, Omos going over is probably the best one. And then we'll see where we go from there with Omos, because again, there's a lot they can do. Let's move on to another match then. Let's have a look. What have we got coming up next? Let's go with... Run out of matches to talk about now. So I guess we'll go with Edge and AJ Styles. Again, getting, to be fair, again, I look at the caliber of the people in these matches we're about to talk about, and I think, what are we moaning about this being not a big pay-per-view? When you look at the names on it and some of the matches, they are kind of still dream match there, but it's because we saw it last month. Yeah. Again, we've predicted this already, so we'll go straight in with you, Lucas, on this one. Who do you think? We're quite split, but I'll explain what that is in a moment. Okay. Who would you say?
Did you predict when you knew the stipulation that obviously Damian Priest was not allowed at ringside? Just to clarify.
Well, I tell you what, mate, I didn't know that was a thing. So yes, we did it before that.
I think that was only done because it wasn't on the again Wikipedia. I know it gets things wrong, but usually with these things, it's actually right. It wasn't on the Wikipedia page. I think earlier in the week it has been added.
Right. So he's banned from ringside.
That Damian Priest is banned from ringside. Yeah.
Okay. I still think I would stick with what I've said, but we'll get into that in a moment.
Okay.
See,
this is the thing. So far, we've spoken about 2 WrestleMania rematches. So we've spoken about obviously Charlotte and Ronda and Lashley and Omos, and I've gone for a different winner from WrestleMania with both of those picks. So do I continue this trend? And you're saying this was the match that everyone split at, which is actually interesting. Obviously, that's what we like. We like this table to be, competitive, and we all sit here and agree. It'd be very boring.
Exactly.
And yeah, it is hard because again, like Rob, you mentioned before about this rubber match situation that they're always trying to set up. It seems, but I get a feeling this is something which is going to continue. And they're setting up just a big payoff match, probably inside Hell in a Cell, I'm guessing. And again, it is with 2 performers who don't necessarily need. They won't. There's no benefit either way, I guess. Like obviously, was no detriment either way. I think that the winner of this match will be Edge again. I think that they're going to. This will be one of the Hell in a Cell feuds. Because again, we have got to look at that. Hell in a Cell has to build off of this event.
Yeah.
Or at least one of them. I guess obviously they are going to do Charlotte and Ronda inside Hell in a Cell. That could also come off this, but I wouldn't be opposed. Or you could also imagine them just being tomorrow night on Raw, just being like Becky versus Asuka's inside Hell in a Cell because
right, yeah,
why not? It's allowed because it's already a story there. It's a good match. But I think essentially you've got to have at least one of the matches on this card lead into Hell in a Cell if that's what's next.
Yeah.
And this feels like it would fit, especially because if we're going to have this one where Damian Priest is banned from ringside, which means he's most likely going to appear in some capacity, even if it's on by video or some sort of shenanigans. Because obviously Edge is now a bit more supernatural, so there's some shenanigans that could happen, and then that would obviously lead well into the next match being Hell in a Cell. So yeah, I'll go with Edge. What were you guys split with?
So Dan also went with Edge, and then myself and Rob basically went for the same thing. Not only does it get interesting here because we go for different things, so we're 2-2 now. You two, Edge, and me and Rob went AJ, but we went AJ and bonus pointed as well. Both of us used the bonus point that it would be either by DQ or count out, some sort of thing like that. So AJ will win because of interference, because of this group expanding. Now, I'm still not sure which way I go, though. I'm still not sure. I mean, I can't change it anyway. But this Damian Priest thing, because even before the Damian Priest thing, I was like, well, something's going to happen. And that either means Edge is going to win because he's going to get away with it, or he's going to lose but they kind of. So Edge won the last one, right? Because
for a spear,
because basically because of distraction and all that. So this time I felt like although there'd be maybe a new member or something like that, which I think the Damian Priest thing definitely leans into, he got away with it last time. So the story will be that they got a new member, not they got a new member and won. But then usually if you do get a new member, it kind of the image of them walking away with Edge as AJ lays there is probably the kind of shot they go with as the new member rather than new member, but then didn't put it off. So it's kind of a tough one in that sense. So I still kind of feel like the same thing's going to happen. I think it probably will be a new member. What about you, Rob? would you have changed if you knew Priest was banned from ringside, or would you have tried to stick anyway?
Yeah, so it's been bugging me for ages because I was like, look, we used this bonus point thinking that, predicting that AJ could win only due to interference or something. So I guess it kind of, I would change, but I would, I don't know. It's one of those, I would change because I've got another idea. However, I would have lost a point. I still think AJ is going to win.
Okay.
But I think just because Priest is not allowed at ringside, what's to say that someone new can't?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think,
but essentially, if you said distraction finish, then that's obviously any person, I guess.
Yeah. Well, we basically just had a DQ, like as far as like booking it in. But even still, this could lean still into that of Priest is banned. Well, how'd you get DQ'd by the person who's banned coming to ringside?
All you've really got to hope though is that whoever's doing this decision making with the officiating actually does it properly though, because
we've been screwed by this before, haven't we? Yeah,
they decide weirdly, so they could decide. This is the thing, because Edge is supernatural.
Yeah,
they could decide if something happens kind of in the match and it spooks the referee, and then someone interferes and they're doing a beatdown of Styles, which technically is a DQ.
But the ref didn't even. The ref was in a daze, or
and the match is basically, they could decide the match has been called off, and then that becomes obviously a draw.
A draw rather than a gotcha. Like the referee couldn't even make it.
Screw you a lot because you're
would be right, but not gonna.
Obviously, you'd.
It's a tough one, but I think even what you said there, though, Hell in a Cell, I never even factored that in when we were doing predictions before. And I think that's a good point, though. I do think if any match goes to Hell in a Cell, storyline-wise, this one works. It plays on the whole kind of gimmick that they're doing anyway. Imagine if it is more than, a few guys around the ring and the lights are going out and they're all flickering lights and they're all stood either side of the cell or something like that. I can kind of picture something like that. They try and sneak their way in or do some sort of stupid kind of shenanigans, because they're probably going to take all the Fiend's kind of special effects budgets now. So they can do that kind of. So it fits with that. Hell in a Cell fits with this storyline. Hell in a Cell, I think, fits with the caliber guys we talked earlier about Omos maybe not being ready for a Hell in a Cell match. I mean, they are watered down compared to what they used to be. We see ridiculous amounts of them now. They're not as special anymore. But if you're looking at two guys, that would be, wow, Hell in a Cell between AJ Styles and Edge. Take away the gimmick, what's going on at the moment. And I do like that. I do like this new kind of blood, and excitement for the feud and for Edge, and gives them something to do. But even when you strip that away, we're still on that kind of element of dream match between these two guys. So that alone in a Hell in a Cell would be fantastic.
That's a match that you would literally make on like a WWE game. Do you know what I mean? Like 100%. But I mean, you're talking about like stupid things that happened. I mean, Zach, literally at this pay-per-view last year, we had the match where the zombies appeared. So
was that? No, was it?
Yeah, dude. It was.
It was.
Damian Priest versus The Miz.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Yeah. Oh man, it's been such a weird few years in wrestling, man.
It really has. So
because we especially in that period where we're just coming out of the pandemic, we let them kind of get away with a lot. I feel like there was a lot of things, again, like the trash compactor rubbish. I hated, but other than that, there was still a lot of things where you look back, like the swamp match and stuff like that, where we just let him go for it. We're like, you know what?
I mean,
screw it. The new version of wrestling is Hollywood. Go for it.
Think about it. At this point last year, I think Omos was the massive ninja for Tozawa. Yeah. So I don't even think he had debuted at that point. So, or if he had debuted as the ninja or on Raw Underground.
Yeah,
so like,
another weird thing. Yeah.
That's right.
I think obviously it's always been interesting. I don't know how much of your social media feeds obviously gets full of this day, this day a couple of years ago, last year, whatever. And obviously life is very different now, on the most part globally, obviously, as we've come out of obviously the worst 2 years really for a lot of people. Like wrestling in particular, like it's so weird to think that essentially, how do you go about rewatching 2020 stuff? Do you know what I mean?
You have to look at it in a certain lens, like
like WrestleMania. I remember WrestleMania 36, and it being, to be honest, like it was the thing that happened for like 2 weeks because nothing else happened. Nothing else. The world stopped. And
I was so, and I I know this isn't a kind of reflection on 2020 podcast or anything, but I got to say, I was so happy with WrestleMania then. It was such a good distraction. Like I know they do the whole cheesy, we're here to entertain and we want to, and they were kind of hamming it up, but I got to admit, like it really did mean a lot to a lot of people. So and I think that's why we did kind of let them get away with some crap as well.
I think we had to though, because it was a case of it was it or nothing.
Yeah.
Everything else stopped. Obviously, AEW obviously stayed about because again they were in Florida. Obviously, billionaires funding and stuff. Everything else stopped. Obviously, live wrestling over here had stopped. Obviously, NXT UK stopped production. Like there was nothing. There was absolutely nothing. And throughout, obviously, as you can probably tell, Scott is a fan of bad football.
Oh, come on now. Come on. Said the Millwall fan.
Don't out him. I
had to get that joke because you're wearing the shirt. But yeah, no, obviously everything stopped. Obviously, football stopped. It's in proper football, not obviously what you Americans play. Everything stopped. NFL, everything stopped, didn't it? For ages.
Yeah,
and it was just WrestleMania was still happening.
Yeah. And we started doing the podcast in that time as well.
We did.
Like around then.
We did.
It was just after Mania, wasn't it? So
yeah, we did.
Yeah.
It was
the fun times. Yeah.
Well, it was a season really that you won, wasn't it? Your season.
Well, I didn't want to mention it, but
and even Rob's season obviously started in during a looser lockdown, a better scenario obviously for the pandemic, but still like the fact that so much of the stuff that you say is just crazy. But even like I say, even without the pandemic, there's still just so much has happened that's been crazy when you think of the fact that essentially matches that happened on this event last year, you can no longer do because people do not work for the company anymore. Like it's mental.
Yeah, it does show you what kind of you would think is a big thing to still be in a big pay-per-view at PLE, but yeah, things change so quick now.
Wasn't Strowman still in the company at about this point too? Wasn't it? Yeah, because that was Triple Threat, wasn't it? Triple Threat, wasn't it? Him,
Bray Wyatt, and that's how Roman won the championship.
No.
Didn't Strowman have one last big push before he left? Because he had the match with Shane, and then he had he was in the title picture.
It must have been him, Reigns, and
Reigns and Cesaro, like you said earlier. So Roman was against, was it Lashley? Strowman.
Yeah, it was
Lashley.
No, it was Lashley. It was a triple threat match. Last WrestleMania, was it WrestleMania Backlash or was it the pay-per-view afterwards? I'm pretty sure it was. Was it Lashley?
And I remember it was a really good match because I remember thinking, "Wow, Strowman's like back in the game, and they're going to use him." I was really impressed.
Let's see. The match was a triple threat match. McIntyre, Drew, Braun, and Lashley. Yeah. There we go.
It was good.
It was the main event.
I'd say it was good.
And again, they only had 6 matches last year as well. They had 7, one on the pre-show. So they had 7 matches in total last year. Because they had another triple threat. There was that whole period where everyone was in triple threat. Even AEW had one, didn't they, as well? I think their casino one, whatever that's called, Double or Nothing.
Yeah,
that was a triple threat too. And obviously, you had the whole Dan and Bryan memes. Obviously, after with WrestleMania of him being in the triple threat.
Yeah.
Then the next month, they had 2 triple threat matches on the same show. We had Rhea Ripley, Asuka, and Charlotte, and one of them, and then the one I just said. And yeah, you're right. It was the zombie lumberjack match.
And that was a sponsor as well, wasn't it? That was to do with a sponsor. Strange times. Before we move away from this match, though, completely, the Edge and AJ one, we've touched on there, obviously, potential of someone coming in tonight. My big fear is that we do the kind of thing that wrestling fans do, where we kind of hype ourselves up to think this will be the moment from the event, and nothing happens. That's what I'm a bit worried about. That no one's going to join the stable. This stable kind of will fluctuate in excitement because it will just kind of wait too long without adding people. But obviously, there's a few names kind of floating around. We mentioned it on last week's show as well, but obviously didn't get your input even, Lucas. Is there anyone you would like to see get involved with this stable? Anyone you think should be involved, or anyone you like to keep away from it, or any rumors that you've heard, basically?
Wasn't Rhea Ripley meant to be part of it?
Rhea's probably one of the biggest ones I've heard.
That's what I heard, Rhea Ripley. I think it could help. And, not that, I guess, it was inevitable anyway, as we know they hate tag teams, but it would at least kind of be like, okay, this is why she at least turn on Nikki ASH to like just not really do anything with that, and there's something afterwards. I think the only kind of way they get around this really is if it's a call up from NXT. I think like of a lower card NXT person that people will not be familiar with, because then obviously they can be presented and branded as this is them essentially.
Yeah.
But because obviously the problem they have is if it's anyone that is somewhat known or has like a fan base or whatever, then you get the whole like, you know, what's happened obviously with Pete Dunne going to Butch on SmackDown, people not being happy. I think it depends where it's going to go. Yeah, I think, or failing that, it's weird because I know obviously they had already put him in, well, on dark matches anyway, along with what's his name? Not EC, the fake EC3. What's his name? LA Knight. That's the one.
Fake EC3.
LA Knight. It's just the same similar gimmick. Yeah, LA Knight. They're in that stable, aren't they? Which has been on thingamajig on dark matches. But what's his name? Mace. That's it. Someone like Mace T-Bar.
Yeah.
Feel could fit this kind of, if they're going to go for the role, because actually it depends how they want it to be. They want it to be Edge and just like two big guys essentially. I think that could work. Dijakovic's criminally underused as well. I
think it needs to be some sort of like a bit more like there's followers and they're of all different creeds. You know what I mean? They're all kind of not necessarily two big bodyguards, because then I think you'll blur them together. I think you need to be like Damian Priest is the big guy, Rhea Ripley is the girl. You know, like I think they need to do it like that, and like such and such is the, you know, the grappler
is floating around, isn't it?
Yeah, Ciampa's another rumor as well.
That could be decent. I think Rhea opens up some actual interesting avenues, though. I think because. I think while I don't think we're ever going to see WWE do full-on intergender in the way of which the Impact had done it, obviously with Tessa Blanchard a few years back, and again, literally ended during the pandemic too, didn't it? That whole Tessa Blanchard world title reign. But I do think that they would, if they can have Rhea with Edge, that at least puts possibility of them doing some sort of mixed tags or having Rhea involved with essentially doing stuff with male wrestlers.
Yeah.
You know,
which would be cool. I think she'd suit that.
Is a cool thing, and something which they don't do a lot of.
No,
you know, they don't do a lot of. You know, outside of
base celebrity would work well with as well. You know, and I do think Rhea would be well suited to that.
And the bigger for this, for the women's division side, is that it would allow them to actually have non-championship matches on pay-per-views involving the women. If they were to do that, because I think Edge's stable would carry enough weight to be able to warrant a pay-per-view spot. In the last possible way. It's not like it's, you know, a mid-card and a girl teaming. It's obviously Edge, who's obviously that's enough. And it's something which I think we spoke about on here quite a few times. Obviously, you know, the women need to be doing stuff that's not just, oh, I want to be the Raw Women's Champion or SmackDown Women's Champion, or because Becky and Charlotte already booked in those divisions, I'm now going to find a random tag team partner and decide I want to be the Women's Tag Team Champion. You know, which is obviously the women's division, like I said, it's miles better than obviously how it was when obviously we were all probably first getting into it as fans, but it is still just very much like, why is it always the for the championship?
Yeah. Now you said
like, this is feud that's happening, and this
we
will
need
be a
blood
vehicle
feud
to get that result potentially. So Rhea is that's why I find Rhea quite interesting. Yeah, maybe I do agree. Maybe they cover a few different kind of people, but that's why I think they might scour through NXT.
I reckon they're gonna do something kind of. Do you remember our Taker had the Ministry? So
that's what I'd like. Something like that.
I want to see it because. They don't have to take over everything, but there's enough stuff going on for them, and they can lead this all the way up to. No, I mean it's a bit long, but they could be led up to Survivor Series because Edge is a name that can draw value. You know what I mean? He doesn't have to be on the show all the time. He can do his random appearances. He doesn't have to wrestle.
And it's a presence up and down the card as well. You know, it's something that will string the rest of the feuds together, you know. I mean, so
throw Ciampa in there. You know, you can throw in Viking Raiders. They're not doing nothing. You know, or T-Bar and Mace, put them back together.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what?
There's a lot of options.
I would have taken. Do you remember when T-Bar and Mace had the headgear on for whatever
Retribution. Yeah, Retribution.
Right now, I didn't mind the headgear, but I just think, no disrespect to Ali, because he's a phenomenal athlete and what he does in the ring. I'm glad we're seeing him back in the ring. But I just think Ali's name wasn't big enough to carry that stable. Edge, on the other hand, could take both of those guys and make that believable. So I just think sometimes it's, you know, someone like Taker, you took.
It was done for him. Like he was in the Brood, which became part of the ministry, you know. So
it's exactly that. So I feel.
Well, this is the thing. If done right, I feel if done right and given the time. But the problem is, by Survivor Series, this tape might most likely no longer exist.
Yeah.
How quickly they can burn through this stuff. Yeah. You know, like I think, if done right, and if they decide they're going to have faith with people, and kind of let there be. Obviously, this is where Edge being involved can help too, because as much as there's a star power argument between obviously him and Ali, but also the fact that Edge most likely will have some sort of control.
He's got
going. Because again, Edge's whole thing has been he's doing this on his terms now, so it's a case of, you know, obviously within reason, but it is a case of if he's really unhappy with the creative direction of what's being offered, he'll most likely choose to go, you know what, put my retirement match. Give me my money for my contract and off I pop, basically.
Yeah.
You know, and I think this is where it will help. You got more clout and more kind of, you know, appeal to kind of do that. And it could be because it is handy because I think. I'm sorry.
I said he's basically in the role that Gangrel was now in when Edge and Christian were coming up.
Essentially.
Yeah.
Well, even more so. I mean, Gangrel is as good as he was in a good position then. Edge is even further, you know, being a legend, you know, of like the way he come back and all the title reigns and stuff like that. People hold him in such high regard still, and I do think a lot of this is going to be about him bringing people up. And while people like Ciampa aren't exactly a fresh kind of never ever had a chance, I do feel like he'll look at someone like Ciampa and go, well, you never had the chance that you probably should have got. As much as he was, you know, top dog in NXT, he might be the kind of guy that goes, well, you're coming over here now, you're going to make a difference here, and I'm going to make sure you don't get lost in the shuffle like most NXT call-ups do. So, and then I feel like he might go for a Rhea because I think he'd like Rhea's style, and I think he might go for maybe a younger NXT talent as well. So there's a lot they could do, like up and down the roster and up and down the card as well, where again it would kind of put purpose on everything.
I think also having kind of misfit stable could work too. Because I think we always have that in our head of like, obviously a stable's the main guy, the tag team, the manager / the kind of one that you know is going to turn, I guess usually. Yeah. The case, the one that's kind of, you know, always a bit distant, because obviously the stake. You know, the thing that there's so many stories that can come out of stables is a thing, and it's a case of obviously how much they want to invest in this. And tonight, to be fair, could be an actual good way to see how much they want to invest. If they, you know, if they do it right and it's done good and something obviously we can enjoy, then fair enough. If it's done wrong.
This is the thing. We could be hyping ourselves up for something that is just absolutely boring.
Yeah, if it's done wrong, then it's done wrong, mate. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Well, go on.
So I was going to say, what was your thoughts on their name? Because the stable now has a name. They're called Judgment Day.
Yeah.
Do you think? I just think going by a name of Judgment Day, two people kind of doesn't fit it. There's more to that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
kind of, yeah.
Have you seen? I think Dan put in our little group chat earlier the kind of Judgment Day poster back in the day of Edge, looking like the Here's Johnny, picture, and then they've redone it. And I've just seen Damian Priest has shared that as well, so that's quite cool to see. Before we quickly move on from this match, let me get to a few comments first, and we'll touch on these in a bit. Drew versus Roman at Hell in a Cell for the belt is one option here from Hornsboy, and also not Kronos. Is Brock returning tonight? So haven't heard anything official. We will speculate ourselves later on. We're just going to go match by match, but stick around because we are going to talk about where he probably would return, if any, would be in the Roman Reigns match. And obviously we talk about Drew and Roman just there. We're going to get to that in a bit. We've got a few more matches to do. And please, give us your comments, what you think is going to happen, things you want us to talk about. Definitely let us know down below in the comments. And as always, please subscribe. Quickly before we get to AJ1, we spent a lot of time on this. Obviously, they kind of hinted towards a little bit of the old BC, didn't they, with Finn Balor as well. So Finn Balor come out, help AJ Styles. Now, as much as I am a Bullet Club fan, I'm a fan of those guys. I was a fan of them flirting with the Bullet Club 5 years ago. I'm not too sure we need it now, but it seems like because the Bullet Club themselves, and you could, better or worse, whatever people say, is it the same Bullet Club? Who knows? But Bullet Club are kind of becoming a little bit of a thing again these days, as far as making waves and getting a bit of attention, and especially and kind of former members, obviously, in other companies as well. So, is this just WWE kind of clawing it back to sell a few T-shirts? Do you think we're going to get a bit of a stable between AJ and Finn? Because really, that could be what comes out of this, rather than a new member of Judgment Day.
So look, I would love to see it. As you said, I think it's like 5 years, something like that, when they had the impromptu Finn AJ match. What a match that! I mean, that was fantastic. And that was done a day planned on the day or something.
Yeah.
These guys can go. Would I like to see it? Yes, 100%. Like those two together would be great. Again, though, I feel like if you're putting together a stable like Judgment Day, then this is a time for you to have a stable like the club.
Yeah, I guess you could, but
don't see it.
How do you start a club when you've got two of the guys that I mean, they did the three of them. You did Finn and the Good Brothers, and then you did AJ and the Good Brothers. You had the Banner Club, you had the OC, the club, and they never just put the four of them together.
They could have put it together,
and then they could have put one random new guy in it as well. And like we all know what it is. It was the Bullet Club with WWE Lick of Paint. That's what it is. And it does feel like they missed the boat there. I mean, could they? It'd be tougher to add extra new members now and make them feel kind of Bullet Club-esque, I guess.
But it's just how it is now, though, man. Like, you've got to remember, there's shows that you can watch from 2018 to 2019, episode of Raw that you can watch that legitimately have, Revival now, and then obviously it's FTR, the Club, the Good Brothers, AJ Styles, Finn Balor, Ricochet, Seth Rollins, Finn Balor, etc., all on the same show. And then one by one, they just went release for like loads of them. The amount of tag teams that they split up. Look how good the Wyatt family were, for instance, in NXT. They dominated NXT. When they first came to the main roster, and everyone was like, this is really good. Like, this is what we want. They went, no. Split up. Release one. Like, they just, as much as, I think they know that discussion channels like us exist, and that the fans like us exist to go, wouldn't it have been good to see, some remnants of the Bullet Club? Obviously, they were never going to hire a lot of the Japanese ones, let's be real. It's never a case where they get most of those people. But, at one point, they say, when they had Finn, AJ, and the Good Brothers, you had four of them. It's WWE, so they were always bound to go, here's someone that Vince likes.
Yeah.
Put him into.
Austin Theory.
Austin Theory, yeah. Sorry, just Theory. Get it right.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Lost his first name. And, even if nothing else, just let's just feed them to, a New Day, or something like that, to take a loss at a pay-per-view. And they just don't do that. It's interesting you mentioned that, Al, actually. I can't tell what that happened, actually. It could just be, like I said, everything for me now just feels like they're just trying to kind of tease as much as possible, because they're covering for the fact that I don't think at the moment there's a concrete plan for what's going to happen with Roman's belts.
So we've got a comment here, actually. Let me quickly just get to this. Sorry. Going on the Finn thing, which I didn't really think of. From You Know the Deal, and you've definitely joined us before, so thank you for coming back there. I see Finn turning on AJ and joining Judgment Day as the Demon. I mean, it kind of makes a lot of sense when you put it like that. Why are they doing this Bullet Club thing? They don't need to. It's a bit late. And the Demon, the Demon fits Judgment Day as a stable. So
he just lost the US title as well, didn't they, Finn? Didn't they? To
this could be a nice little to Theory. Yeah. So this could be a nice little little twist there, and I think that's a great call.
That's a really good one.
Yeah,
because it's so good, it's not happening.
Yeah, that's the problem. See, this is the thing. Now I'm gonna get worked.
You know the deal in that.
I'm like, now I'm waiting for Finn. It's not Finn. I'm waiting for Rhea. It's not Rhea. I'm waiting for Ciampa. It's not Ciampa. And at the end of it, it'll be like, oh, okay.
There's still a lot of talent on that roster, though. There's a lot of talent there.
If Mojo Rawley comes back, I'm not going to be happy.
Hey, man, come on, get hype.
Yeah, that's actually a good. That's a good one.
That's a really good call. Yeah, really good.
Yeah, didn't think of that, especially because obviously, as we know, the Demon's been used very weirdly on the main roster, very differently as it was to NXT. Yeah. So and it has been rested for a long time now since the weirdest of Extreme Rules. Obviously, I think that was the last time I think we saw it. So
that whole thing with Roman, and even still, he doesn't even have to be. Even Moody Finn fits well in the group, and then every now and then Edge going, we've got our own, like as if he's like a wild mascot within their group. Do you know what I mean? Because the Demon is kind of its thing on its own. Yes, they kind of ruined it by him taking his loss and that weird kind of turnbuckle thing. But one way to get that back is by being like he's our like Tasmanian devil type stuff. Do you know what I mean? He's our little crazy. We've got a demon on our side.
So he's the Butch in the Judgment Day. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, sort of. Yeah. But yeah, it could work. I think it could work.
Rudy Finn, I instantly thought of like Finding Nemo. That can't.
So I had a big thing last night. I haven't seen Finding Nemo, so that's sorry. Guys. I mentioned this last night, and people nearly beat me up.
So, as you know, if you've listened to the Talk and Beans podcast, if you haven't, go and listen to it. Especially when we're spoken about wrestling. But my issue, Lucas, I don't know if you all agree. I like Finn Balor as Finn Balor. I like Finn Balor as the Demon. My issue with Finn Balor when he's the Demon, though, is the only thing different is he's painted up. That's it. There is no he can win a match and he does it convincingly, but all he does is put war paint on. Like for me, he has to do something different. And I've always said this.
A bit of moveset and
moveset, a finisher that he only ever does as the Demon, and he has to be the Demon to do that. Like he has to be more heelish or more of a tweener, for example, and do things knowing that he pushes that boundary because the Demon's taken over. And we've never got that. So if Finn is going to join Judgment Day, this is that chance for us to see that, because he can be that heel Demon and go from there. Plus, they don't have to paint him up all the time. Yes, he can be Finn, but then, for example, if they want the Demon, what's difference with him putting on like like the sports t-shirts, are really tight ones, and having that painted and then just doing the face paint. We don't need to see all the time the whole lot of body paint. So
and a new version of the Demon as well, because back on the in Japan and in the Indies, obviously some of it was copyright material. You can't redo all of it, but he'd switch it up a lot. And I think the problem with the Demon is, he's changed up the paint a little bit, but it's generally the same sort of thing. The headband, the headpiece, and all that kind of stuff. It's like, I think to have a heel Demon within this stable, because they're going for a different, certain color tone as well. They've got the kind of purpley color. They've gone with these kind of like Damian Priest eyes and stuff like that. So they're definitely leaning into that. So for Finn to kind of change it up, have those colors instead, maybe get rid of the headpiece, wear a different one. I think it's there's a lot of opportunity here for something quite good.
I know your favorite look as well, by the way, Scott. I'm sure I do.
What's that then?
It's the Jack the Ripper one, isn't it?
The Jack the Ripper one was cool. I did interview him about that, by the way. I haven't got a graphic ready, but if you want to check out my interview with him better, talking about when he came out as Finn the Ripper, check out on the main Rebellious Noise channel. Before we split off and had the separate wrestling channel that you're now watching, we've got our main channel, of course, REBNOISE. Rebellious Noise, so check that out as well. Lucas, was there anything else you want to say before we move on to the next one?
No. On Rob's question though, I just think it doesn't bother me as much as you that he didn't change much. I wouldn't be opposed to him doing on the finisher, but it's not really. I think the presentation overall, the Demon, I'm actually okay with in the company. But yeah, I do think if he does join this and it's something different, I think would it be the first time that it'd be villain? I think as a Demon as well. That was the case.
I believe so. Yeah, it's always been a face. Yeah.
Has he only been a face in WWE once, that NXT run? Even normal regular.
It was only a heel in NXT. It was a heel in NXT.
That's what I mean. Yeah, it was only once though, right?
Yeah, the Prince. Yeah, that's the only time. Other than that, it's always been a face.
And he didn't use. He didn't use the Demon. So yeah.
I mean, yeah. The thing is, now it's been said, it does seem like it's something that is very plausible, particularly because it's involving guys who, in a nice sort of way, like they're probably looking at the fact of this is essentially their last kind of big hurrah. Essentially, you're talking about guys all in their 40s now. You can't really hold on to Finn for much longer. And it might be a case of keeping him happy too. But yeah. We shall see. It's very interesting though.
Yeah, great comment from the deal right there.
I think the only thing with Finn, as you were saying, Lucas, you can't hold on to people forever. Not that I'm saying Finn's the sort of person to jump ship, but if his contract does expire, they release him. But if he was to be released, the contract was to run down, he wouldn't resign. He's the sort of person that could go straight to AEW and be in a position with the Bullet Club, for example, or a club, or the Elite and stuff.
Or even back to Japan. Yeah, I mean, AEW is kind of clogged up.
Getting full, man.
Yeah,
it's very full. And everyone, I mean, it's probably for a podcast, but in my opinion, everyone's going to AEW. They get like 1 week. They just disappear. That's it.
Yeah,
I mean, look at Ruby Soho. Like, she was massive when she debuted. Then 2 weeks later, you can even tell me anything she's done since. It's like people just merge because it's just every week's just a debut and announcement. That's all it is on repeat basically. And then between the debuts and announcements, matches happen, but it's just like nothing sinks in because everything moves forward so fast. Like Jeff Hardy's in the company now. He's someone who at one point in WWE, he was talked about obviously being in the title picture, obviously against Roman, around the chamber / that kind of period, and obviously left, obviously on not the best circumstances, but he's now in AEW, but it's just like, and like he's just another person.
Yeah, it's tough to not get lost in the shuffle there because there's so many people that you could go, they could go for the title, and they're trying to, to be fair, they're trying to not rush. Punk's only just getting into the title picture, and he debuted nearly a year ago now. So to be fair to him in that sense, it's a difficult thing to do, balance it. But that's what you get when, as much as, and I do think the way they do their pay-per-views are good. I know this isn't AEW pod, like I said, we'll talk about this other times as well. But where they only do, 4 pay-per-views a year, it's good in some ways, but it's kind of detrimental sometimes as well. Because because although they do their special dynamites, which are kind of like their B pay-per-views, they're just special dynamites, and they kind of take the place. Sometimes they have big title matches on and things like that. If you're a casual fan and all you see is the top 4, it's always going to be people like, and I think MJF, for example, is phenomenal. But MJF, for example, will always be involved. Hangman Page will always be involved. Omega's been off because he's been off, injured. But, they're always going to be those top guys. So it's hard to kind of it takes 3 months for there to be a new program that is, well, of course they do mini ones in between, but that's why I think they struggle sometimes. But again, at the same time, there are benefits to not doing a pay-per-view every bloody month. So
it's on the flip side of it, you got WWE obviously will burn through like a whole year of storyline in a month.
Yeah.
Because
so it goes almost too fast, but in the other way it goes slow, so not everyone gets their go, and if they do get their go, it takes ages. Do you know what I mean? So it's a hard one to kind of find balance with. I think it's a good time to talk about someone that was in AEW and no longer is, and is now in the WWE once again, and that is Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes, of course, facing Seth Rollins, a fantastic match and a great moment as well at WrestleMania. I'm looking forward to it again as a match. Looking forward to it. It's one of those again where I look at the card and go, it's all right, isn't it? But again, we saw it last month. What's going to be different about this one? So let me see. Let's give you a little bit of a heads up this time, Lucas. All 3 of us went for Cody Rhodes to win this one. So with that in mind, who are you going for?
Yeah, I'm going with Cody Rhodes. I thought
you froze for a minute. I'm not going to lie.
No, I just think it's too soon for him to kind of lose. It's too soon. I don't know. I just don't see him not winning. I mean, this could be a DQ thing as well, I guess.
But then you have to have another one. Do we have another one? And a lot of this comes into the conversation in a bit about Roman, but who's being prepared for Roman and when? So it kind of feels like it needs to win.
Apart from obviously, the women's match.
Well, you never know.
Much like all these people, somewhat, it feels a bit like whoever impresses Vince the most, will basically get that shot essentially. And I mean, like Cody, where I see it, Cody hasn't come in twiddle his thumbs, sitting catering, and to be in the same position he was in a few years back when he left the company, and obviously went off and did what he did. Rollins, as we, for whatever, I said this till I'm blue in the teeth from here, but like, for whatever reason, they've just decided he's not the guy they're looking for at the moment. They gave him that. I think it was potentially that run they gave him in 2019, which had the combination of obviously bad booking from them, ending a Hell in a Cell match as a draw or no contest, whatever it was.
Some dodgy tweets as well, like kind of upset a few people.
And just I think by the time he had got it, there was just a bit of disinterest around him as a babyface in particular. And when you compare that to when he won the Intercontinental Championship, I think the year before, where he was really on it, like, and obviously Rollins is, I will maintain this opinion like until the cows come home, but I do think he is, interchangeable really between like him and like Styles, probably the best wrestler they've got, but as we know, it doesn't mean that the WWE Championship befalls to that person, as is rarely the case. So obviously we get more into, again, essentially this whole podcast today could be talk basically who's facing Roman next, essentially. But you have to think that essentially Rollins' character at the moment is goofy enough to take the loss. Cody, does need to be rebuilt. Obviously, when they're in smarter wrestling cities, which obviously is quite a lot of the time, but not all the time. Obviously, people know Cody. He was in AEW. They watch him in AEW. When they're in places that necessarily wouldn't have known that, Cody is the guy who left 5 years ago as mimicking his brother's gimmick.
It's all about rebuilding Cody, and I think they've done a fantastic job. The presentation of Cody has been amazing. He's done well. Seth's done well to make him look that way. Production, everything.
Even Miz.
Even what? Sorry, Miz.
The Miz, because like it was on Miz TV, the build up for stuff like that. Like
so they've done great.
Yeah,
he's got to win though. Because of that, like he's got to win because he's not ready to take a loss yet. And I think you're right what you said there, Lucas, as well. Because of Seth's character, he can still get away with it. But then this, especially last year, there was a lot of times where it was like, Seth's got to catch a break eventually. But it hasn't damaged him. I think he's still kind of seen
I don't think it has.
I
don't think it has. Like, he's still getting on pay-per-views. He's still having good matches, still in good feuds. And it's just a case of at the moment, it just doesn't seem to be his time. To be that guy again. But I guess if anything, he is. We're going through options. He is like the safe option. Obviously, to be that guy to take one of these belts off of Roman potentially. But I guess they look at it as potentially that will come like when it comes, and maybe there's other issue. I think as well there's a probably belief in the company that Rollins is probably one of the most safest people in the company in terms of like, he's not someone who they feel is going to obviously go elsewhere. Like they don't want to release him. Like he is going to be there for the foreseeable. So it's a case of if he's not world champion for like a year, 2 years, but a bit like Randy Orton. Obviously, if we forget that bloody run he had when he decided to win it in Hell, well, not he decided, but when they put on him after Hell in a Cell and then lost it back to Drew like 2 weeks later, for no reason. Like he basically hasn't been world champion now for so long, and he's obviously moved on to other projects. He's worked with.
He's happy.
Bray Wyatt. He worked obviously the US title stuff. Now Riddle. Like he is just fitting into that role of like I'll just do whatever the company pays me. I enjoy it. I'm not going anywhere. Like there's pretty much nothing I can do now. Like to get fired because I'm such an asset of the company. I think Rollins is basically that slightly younger version of that. I think it'll be a very good match. And again, going on my logic of like what could they do to kind of shock or change up this one. Like I said about the other matches, I think the only thing would be a DQ, but I don't think it would be needed. But then WWE obviously, we know they don't seem to care about that stuff. If they want to just set up the rematch for Raw tomorrow, it's just, I don't know. I just feel that something could have happened. Like, like why can't there be some stipulation to this or something to make us be more interested?
I'm surprised it's Seth again. I do think, and again, we're definitely going to get into Roman, but I do think this is surely a stopgap to keep Cody busy, and that they didn't expect. I think they thought Cody was going to probably do something where it would be going on to Roman or someone else at this stage. I didn't think it didn't look like it was going back to Seth, and then they suddenly seemed to pivot straight back into. I remember you guys kind of don't like each other, and they just went straight into the same feud again. I think all I'm after with this match really is that it'll be an entertaining wrestling match. That's all I can ask, because again, I don't expect shenanigans or storylines to come out of it. So it's just got to be a fun match, really.
Yeah,
I reckon this is match of the night. This has match of the night written all over it.
Yeah, of course.
I think the only thing I think that can come out of this is both guys looking strong, and it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier about Seth can take 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 losses in a row and bounce back. Where Omos, as we were saying, the minute he loses again, that's it. He's finished. Like he can't bounce back from that as well. So Seth is in a very good position for himself, and for the company, because same as kind of like with Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn can take a loss. He lost to Johnny Knoxville, and he'd done it so convincing and so well that everyone remembers how good the match was, not that the fact that he took the loss, and he can bounce back. So both like them sort of guys that put themselves in that position are in a good position for themselves, because they can take the loss, they can take a win. And the thing is, the minute they take that loss, they're like, all right, we're bouncing back. And then it builds that character up again. The only other time I think they've done something to do with loads of losses was Kurt Hawkins. And look at the payoff for that. He finally won the tag team championship.
Yeah, I think losing streaks are different.
Do you know what I mean? So it is very different. I don't think Seth will go on a losing streak, but it's something that Seth can do to really go, okay, now take me serious. And it'll build and build and build. I mean, he's already in that. Is he still in that weird Jokerish, snappy phase? And he was playing mind games with Roman for their pay-per-view. So yeah, he's built himself in a nice position where he doesn't have to do much, but when he's not doing much, he's doing enough to keep relevant and be busy. So I'm really intrigued to see what happens. But yeah, I reckon this is match of the night.
Okay, right. Well, let's get on to that main event that we've kind of tiptoed around all night. Once again, thank you for those watching. Please drop a comment. Let us know what you think is going to happen at Backlash, WrestleMania Backlash, I should say. What you'd like to see at WrestleMania Backlash. A bit of a tongue twister, that one. But yeah, we're now going to talk about the main event, what we assume could be the main event if it's not the I Quit match, and that is the strangely thrown together Drew McIntyre and RKO, not rated RKO, Drew McIntyre and RK Bro versus the bloodline of Jimmy and Jey Uso and the head of the table, Roman Reigns, who, as you can see, holds 2 championships right there. Now, again, we touched on it earlier. There was rumors. Well, it wasn't even rumors. It was straight up going down the route of tag titles going to be unified and all this kind of stuff. And they just decided not to. And I speculated on a predictions episode that I think that's because they've realized, well, they've got an RK Bro, and they think, let's just keep some belts on them as well. I think that's what they've done here. I think they've just backed out of it because they thought, hold on. Just like they did when they rumors, they were going to split them up, and then they probably thought, this is too good. We can't split them up. We have to keep it going. I think they've delayed the potential of combining the titles. But as you were saying, Lucas, the world titles aren't unified properly anyway, so maybe they weren't ever going down this route. So
strange. Dirty Dave, he reported on this, and he said that the plan was never ever to unify the tag belts. The plan was to advertise that unification match to sell tickets. As they did advertise, obviously, Brock Lesnar originally for this show. He's on the original poster, original artwork, and that they've said that was because they didn't want to spoil the obviously main event of WrestleMania Night 2. But they kept it up for like a week and a half after Roman won.
Yeah.
True. So they were kind of, and that that was only a few weeks ago now. So 3 weeks ago or so, Brock Lesnar was advertised for the show, and he was then obviously taken off. and it became apparent that they weren't going to go in that direction. But it just feels very weird because they've really done a lot with this whole like champion stuff. To obviously not end up with it. Now the actual match prediction is very hard to predict because I think it did for me. It still to me. I know this match it feels big. You know, obviously it has some big players in, but it still kind of feels a bit like
it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it doesn't
it's
matter.
very house show, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and all go home. We said this on the prediction as well. I think Rob said it. It feels it's a go home match. You know, like it. As much as I think it will be entertaining, if I was at a house show and I saw this, I'd think it was fantastic. If the titles were on the line, I'd be way more into it.
There's nothing at stake.
Yeah, it just doesn't.
Other than
matter.
I guess like Roman getting pinned. Which obviously hasn't been pinned. You know, and I hope it. Although my prediction is that RK Bro and Drew McIntyre will win, obviously I'm hoping that it won't come at the expense of Roman obviously getting pinned. So I'm expecting one of the Usos to obviously take the pinfall in this match. I don't think Roman's not being pinned thing should end in a 6-man tag on bloody WrestleMania Backlash.
It's a way to get around it, but you don't need to do it. They wouldn't need to be desperate to do it, you know. So I'm just locking you in there then. So RK Bro and Drew is your pick, yeah?
Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, basically the rest of us went for the Bloodline. And I think we saw it as, I remember being like, it just looked like Riddle, like because this match was 4-0. I feel like maybe if it was for the titles that originally it would have gone to the Usos. I think if anyone's getting all the titles, it's the Usos, so that the Usos can stand stuck with all the titles, with Roman's 2 titles as well. And I felt like that's where they were going to go, and they've just backed out because of maybe as it was reported, maybe that was never going to be the case. But it just seemed to me when I first made the prediction that they had backed off because they thought, these guys, we need to kind of keep them looking strong. So I always saw it as they were probably going to take the titles off of RK Bro, so therefore they were going to take the loss. They decided not to take the titles off him, but they're still going to take the loss, is what I was thinking. So that's why I went with that. Again, the Bloodline could lose because it's not for any title. So this is that's a bit of a spanner in the works there. So, but then what does that do? Why is it Drew? And I guess this is where we get into talk of what's next and who goes on where, because a big thing we discuss again in the predictions is the fact that Tyson Fury and Drew looks like it will be a thing at the Wales show, right? Because Tyson Fury's said he's coming back. They've been calling each other out for ages. I think a Brit versus a Brit is kind of what they're going for. Now we've been saying I hope it's not for the title, so I hope Drew doesn't get the title at Hell in a Cell and that becomes a title match because it doesn't need it. It would really annoy me. I'm excited to see Drew versus Tyson Fury. I think it'd be a great moment for both guys, great for Drew's career, great for the show, but I don't want a title involved. But it does feel like they are leaning towards Drew going up to Roman, and it's a strange timing because again, you could see Drew being the guy that beats Roman because about a year or two ago when they had that, was it Clash of Champions? They had that match together. We've had this kind of hinted throughout the times that, eventually it will come back round to Drew, So is that what we're going with? Is it going to be after? Because SummerSlam's going to be before that. Tyson Fury said he's in talks of being at SummerSlam as well. So I'm leaning towards Drew being the guy that kind of maybe is around Survivor Series with Roman. And before that, it's Cody. But then Cody losing it, that's damaging to Cody. So, it's a strange one, man. Because, they could go so many different directions with this. And even if they do they beat Roman? Does Roman hold on to this whole thing with The Rock? And,
Yeah, the thing is, I think, if we rewind to this match, I feel that as there's nothing at stake, the Bloodline need to lose. Because, essentially, I think if the Bloodline win, then what? Like, they've beaten everyone. Roman's beaten the whole roster already. It's in singles. He's now just beating people again on the pay-per-view. Like, the rest of the card, as we're saying, like this, obviously fair enough, there's Cody in there, and there's obviously promising people like AJ Styles, Edge, so they're obviously all kind of in their own thing, and like a case of if they just fed to Roman after he's already beat this 6-man tag, like they're just gonna lose. Like they've got this problem now where there's no one really on Roman's level.
Yeah.
And they spend a lot of time building that person up. But to do that, and yeah, the thing with these like Tyson Fury things is, I mean, Tyson Fury can say he can be any show, like if he wants, but it doesn't mean it's happening. It's a problem. And you know, it is obviously getting everything in line to do that, and it's something that they want to do. I mean, obviously, he did last wrestle in Saudi, and we know the Saudi budget is huge.
Yeah,
I can't really see the UK in a cost of living crisis that we're in at the moment, kind of wanting to throw Saudi money at.
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't, but I think the country, but you know, and that's what happens to the Saudi shows. But I think WWE would. I think this has probably been in talks for a long time, and they've clearly sowed the seeds for a reason. And I do think, although I do think it's a bit of an odd one because they're both basic baby faces, I get why Drew would want to do it. So I think he's probably pushed for it a lot. So yeah, I could definitely see it. Another option is whether or not, and it was mentioned in the comments earlier on, whether or not Brock Lesnar comes back tonight. And now, you know, that's Brock's got to come back at some point, but another Brock going straight into Roman again is a bit like, really?
Yeah, the belief is that will be SummerSlam.
I just don't want to see it.
They are essentially out of ideas. They're out of people.
Yeah.
The only thing they can do, all they feel they can do is go back to that. You know, which obviously it's at the stage now of becoming like what was it, Kofi and Ziggler years ago, where it was just every week basically forever. Or Kofi and The Miz, and you know that combination measure of mid card essentially on SmackDown. Well, when the whole brand split wasn't really a thing and everyone was wrestling everyone. I just feel, like I think obviously Lesnar losing at Mania. This is the thing. The old storyway is this would be a long burn thing of Lesnar does not get his title match. He has to earn it, going through the roster, you know, that kind of stuff, having other matches, doing other things, and then a year down the line, 2 years down the line, potentially, he then gets that shot, and then it's a big deal. But with WWE storytelling, the way it goes, like I say, it is believable that he could just show up at or before Money in the Bank and just be like, well, I'm next. Like, you know, but he's gifted that ability to do that. I think it'd be weird if he did show up because they advertised him for it to then remove him off the poster to then just have him on the show. Like, why wouldn't you just like
keep him on?
Does it make up for it though? I don't know. Because maybe he was booked and they thought, well, oh, hold on, a better way to do it is to make him go away and come back as a surprise. You know?
Yeah, perhaps I guess, and that could hide the fact that obviously if they are going to go back to Roman and him again, then it kind of it's now a surprise, essentially.
Yeah,
going
exactly.
back to it rather than it being a done deal of okay, this is what we want to do anyway.
Then
I just feel a bit weird him returning and as part of a 6-man tag scenario. Like, why would he care about Drew and
he does have beef with Drew, not in the sense of like recently, but I mean Drew beat him at Mania. You know, so
yeah, he does. But then wouldn't that make him more
there.
a villain, and then he have to be on Roman's side?
Yeah, or he just goes in, attacks everyone, and leaves. Like that's the thing is, it's a weird. They've also booked him in a weird position because we've got this country boy version of Brock that everyone loves.
Yeah,
like, and he can't do no wrong. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's so good. He's such a baby face that no matter what he does, people are going to cheer him, and no matter what no matter who he goes against at the moment, they're going to cheer.
But the thing is, this all started at Mania though, when they did the title, because they put themselves into this impossible corner where someone was going to leave with both championships and basically be undefeatable to anyone apart from the other person at that moment, because that, you know, especially because obviously Roman had it for so long. I mean, even now, imagine if Brock had won that match at Mania and held both championships, would then be in a different situation, because again we would have a pay-per-view essentially with no World Championship match, which is what we've got tonight. Because Brock Lesnar most likely wouldn't be on WrestleMania Backlash, let's be real, defending the championship anyway. And then in a situation of going, well, who's going to face Brock at SummerSlam? It's obviously going to be Roman, because he's the only person who we could
on that
do
level.
it with.
What do you do as well with if there are, like you say, if it is seen as 2 titles and one of them's going to get taken off, then I feel like that's damaging to Roman's thing. I know it technically isn't. If he loses one, it'll probably be the WWE one. And I think the most storytelling one is because Cody looks like he wants the WWE title. He keeps talking about that because of his dad, not the Universal. That's not the big dream. So Cody winning the WWE title, which I assume was these days going to be considered the undisputed title, 2 belts. So if it does go back to just being separate belts and Roman loses one of them, the one that makes most sense is for Roman to lose the WWE one so that he can then technically still hold on to his streak of being Universal Champion for X amount of days. Yeah. But then it's still a risky, damaging thing. And even when they were flirting with this after that day one fiasco, it was like, oh no, guys, please don't, because someone's got to lose. Like Reigns has got to lose it eventually now. So
I mean, the safest thing is, let's say, for example, let's say it's Drew and Cody, right? So we have Drew, Cody, and Roman. They're now in a triple threat match. So what if the WWE Championship was on the line in this triple threat match? As you said.
Oh, okay. And Cody beats Drew.
And Cody beats Drew. Roman hasn't lost.
That's probably the best way to do it. And then you move on to who beats Roman. We've done this for months, but of course it could be Drew, it could be, and it could be holding on to the Rock. Who knows? But I mean, I think that's the best way to do it, like what you just said.
Because let's face it, when he comes out, what belt does Roman lift over his head? It's the Universal one. The WWE one's around his waist, but Roman lifts up that Universal Championship over his head every single time. You know, so him, that's the important one. When he had the feud with Brock building up to Mania, he hit him with the championship, the WWE Championship. Threw it back on the mat and walked out. You know what I mean? So like his thing is the Universal. So
it makes sense. He's had that belt, obviously.
Exactly. So him losing the WWE, him technically not losing it, but
I think that's the best way to do it, triple threat. And I think Cody's the one that makes most sense because that story as well. I mean, it'd be mad. I mean, the fact that he'd come back in and win it, and I think again presented so well. But
I just find that would cheapen the win or whoever wins in that scenario because you haven't beat the champion. And then it's not a rematch.
A moment, isn't it?
You know what I mean?
Like, exactly. The moment would take over though, because Cody's moment would be bigger than if there's anything to distract you from but you didn't beat the champ, and keep Roman strong. I think that's the best way to do it because the fact is they put themselves into this corner, so they need to get out of it somehow. I think that's the best way to do it, and then the Universe one is the one that continues kind of making him look strong.
It just, like I said, for me, it just depends at what stage they are at with those belts. Like, I mean, a lot of stuff has been very ambiguous. They posted, they put out, like, obviously, you know, usually, obviously, what happens is obviously after every pay-per-view, you know, the card obviously resets for the next one. And usually what happens, the first kind of match that's announced is usually involving one of the world championships, isn't it? Or if it's a trap match, obviously like Money in the Bank, that's a separate issue against the Survivor Series, but we know what we're going to get, so they kind of just go. Same thing last year, but just like most people are released, so there's now new people. But yeah, like essentially, but that didn't happen, did it? After obviously WrestleMania this year, because obviously, you know, again, and so to me, that's another thing that makes you think that. Is Dirty Dave right? Like, is it just going to go back to Brock and Roman because they haven't built anyone really up to face him? The only thing that's been said is Cody Rhodes saying in a promo, "Oh, my dad 30 years ago wanted to win the world championship."
I want to see Brock go for the IC. You know, like not that it needs to happen, but the IC championship.
Well, no, he's part of a
US, you know,
club. I'm afraid.
Like I'd love to see that. Like imagine Brock doing an open challenge every pay-per-view. Like just because he knows
it would be fun, especially with like fun Brock that we've got now as well. But what do you guys make of? I don't know if you've seen it. The clip of Roman Reigns last night, basically hinting that he thinks his time in WWE might be coming to an end. Did you hear about this? So he basically said whichever town he was in, don't know how many times I'm going to come back here. Hinting, you know, my life's changing, blah, blah, blah. And people were getting up in arms thinking, wow, they've put all their eggs in one basket. And that guy's just suddenly going, might not be here forever. I think it makes sense. Guy's been through a lot. He's achieved a lot. The big thing to tick off the list now is The Rock. And I think that probably will happen. So I wouldn't be surprised if he did lose maybe even both the titles, and then face The Rock without the titles next year. And then after that, he can always come back every few years. I think the main goal for what Roman needs to do now, is a massive star, is basically make that transition that Rock did. I think that's the thing that he's probably most likely going to be thinking, I can spend time with my family. Again, he's completely changed his career in the sense that the respect he's got from the, I guess, the smart fans, let's be real. So he's won them over. He's had one of the greatest reigns of all time, no pun intended. I think the only thing to tick off the list now is The Rock. And then crack onto a bit of Hollywood. So I wouldn't be surprised, is what I'm saying.
So I've seen it. I think it's. I think that's still. I don't know. A part of me thinks, okay, look, if he goes to Hollywood, good for him. Like, if he can make that transition, be good at it, and be happy, great, good for him. Like, I'm all for it. I mean, I see him in Hobbs and Shaw, and he looked great. My thing is he going to fall into? Is he going to be still under The Rock's here, or Dwayne Johnson's here, Roman's here? Like, he's always going to be that case. No disrespect to Roman, but Dwayne is a bigger name. I mean, look at Batista, for example. He went on to Hollywood, done Guardians of the Galaxy, and then what was the last big film he done? Do you know what I mean? Like, there has to...
Batista's done all right for himself, I think. Like,
Yeah, but I mean, when he's a lead role, his films aren't that great. He's a better...
But to be fair, it took Rock a long time as well. So, yeah, I mean, Rock did have some smash hits at the start, but not all of them hit after the first, few years. He did kind of have a little bit of a dip. So, but I guess it's hard to compare because just to be another Rock is another thing. But I think just even like Cena's doing all right for himself in Hollywood now. He's never the biggest star, but he's doing all right. And I think a normal transition is enough like that for Roman. Of course, he'll say no, I want to be box office megastar, but realistically, I don't see many years in it for Roman. Sorry,
I mean, a part of me just feels like this is Roman saying, I'm not going to be it. Like, this might be the last time I'm here. Do you not think that could be character saying, like, when his contract's up, this is Roman wanting more money? He's
I don't know, because he's kind of, and he did the same over here in the UK. He was the babyface that sent everyone home happy, which is a strange way as well, because people were just so excited to see him back on the road. So maybe that's all it is, though. Him being back on the road and being like, it's just reminded me, like, this all could have been taken away several times for him in the past few years. So maybe that's him just going, you know what, from now on, every cycle, I'm going to treat it like my last. And maybe that's all it is.
Maybe.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, I don't think he's leaving. He's 36 years old, like, which, as we know now, is young for wrestling, essentially. He's in a really good position, obviously, in the biggest wrestling company in the world. In the nicest possible way, like, Hollywood is an option for him, but like you said, like Rob said, he's not the star caliber of obviously The Rock or Cena, because it's just basic facts of essentially, The Rock was champion when 7-8 million people watched the product a week. John Cena was champion even when the ratings. Remember, I wish I could find some old posts from forums back that I was part of back in like 2004, 2005, and people going, "Oh, the ratings are awful." SmackDown's gone below 4 million, and all that kind of stuff. And now they literally, they had to beg The Rock back, have a network premiere, have Brock Lesnar face the WWE title, just a scrape 3 million a few years ago. For that episode of SmackDown 2019, and Raw can only dream of getting above 2 million, nowadays. So, and it's just because I said this about someone about Cody Rhodes as well, which is why it's been so receptive in return. Because as much as like he wasn't part of the product, we get it. He wasn't part of the product back when it was obviously the Attitude Era. We get that, and all those highs obviously where it was, but he was still part of the product when it was like 4 million viewers a week. Part of Legacy. He wrestled in WrestleManias, like in stadiums, etc. Like he didn't, even though that was meant to be the quote unquote rubbish era, that we're meant to be like, oh, that was so rubbish, it's so bad compared to the Attitude Era. It's still like metric wise, just
we're still bigger.
Different. And to like the movie going like kind of public, they're they're just names they know, and I think John Cena would be, because you see him on enough stuff to kind of know, okay, if nothing else, you know he was the wrestling guy.
Yeah.
You know, and same with The Rock. But The Rock,
I think Roman takes a few more years to get to that. You know, I think you're right. I think if Roman did, this reign ends and someone is made from it, and then he has The Rock. I don't think going away straight after The Rock is the answer. I do think even still another year after that. But I think as far as miles.
Oh.
Is he gone? He's frozen.
I think we lost Scott.
All right. So, yeah, he seems frozen. So it's going off of what Scott said. With Roman, if Roman was to leave, let's say after he faced The Rock, it would kind of go back to. Do you remember The Rock and Brock Lesnar and Goldberg?
Yeah.
It would kind of feel the fans would be unhappy because we know full well that no matter whoever wins, we lose both guys. Do you know? So I just don't feel like that would make sense. Are you back? You good?
Sorry about that.
Yeah, he's back.
All right. Yeah, no. So I was just saying to Lucas, because you kind of froze for a sec.
Yeah.
Touching on when you were saying about Rock versus Roman.
Yeah.
If we were to get that, and Roman was to leave straight after, he'd have that bad blood and that bad feel, kind of how we had with Rock and Goldberg. And that is bad. That's bad for both guys, you know. Especially Roman if he goes to Hollywood, going off to Hollywood. The wrestling
under that, I think another year after the Rock match, whatever happens, because he'll be passing the torch, he'll probably win it. To be fair, so he'll have to stick around for a bit. But as far as big milestones, I think that is probably the last one he's probably got in his mind, unless the business starts doing way more, or and like it becomes being, I want to be the guy to headline such and such show in front of X amount of people, then there'll be new goals, or like someone big comes up we don't expect, or someone joins the company that he's always wanted to work with. Other than that, I do understand why he might be starting to feel like, realistically, don't know how long's in this kind of game for me, but even still, it doesn't mean he's not going to be around. I think he might just be being like, look, these are my last kind of tours. I might not be coming to these towns that much anymore. I'm only going to be doing certain shows, and if this building isn't where Money in the Bank 2025 is, I might not see you again, So it might just be simply something as that, he's going to start, kind of doing less shows. But
but I think you touched upon it like quite nicely when you said, I think essentially it might be him kind of thinking, obviously after COVID, after his leukemia battle, thinking, okay, every kind of show I'm treating like it's my last kind of thing, and you never kind of know, you hear all the time, like, people taking stuff for granted, and then something happens, and that's that kind of thing. But yeah, I don't think he's. I don't know. I don't. It's hard to overanalyze stuff, but I don't really see him leaving the WWE like anytime soon.
Yeah.
As a full-time wrestler, and I wouldn't foresee him really even going part-time for a good few years, really, because I don't see unless there's an underlying thing. Or again, like. I know Cody said he didn't want to wrestle too much, obviously after the age of about 35, 36 as well, or late 30s, I think it was, he's mentioned. But then on the other side of that, you've had Orton, who said he's happy to do as long as I pay him, basically. And he reckons he can do another 10 years in him, which he probably has, because he's so gifted. And, if they still want to pay him in 10 years, just a team of people like Riddle, like he'd probably just do it. But yeah, it's an interesting one. But yeah, like essentially this whole pay-per-view, essentially, I reckon is just a case of, filling time and just exploring who is going to be facing Roman next.
That's what they should have just called it. If they're going to rename it anyway, why don't they just rename it to something like, more blatant, which is, who's facing Roman Reigns next? It does feel like that for most of it. And there are a lot of options here. Like, we've already gone through quite a bit, obviously. The obvious one seems like Cody and stuff like that, but it could always be a Seth Rollins coming back into the fold. So
we've got Lashley. We've got Kevin Owens. He's always someone who they say they want to.
And that's it. There's so many people not on this card. Sasha Banks ain't on this card. Bailey's still not back. Is Bailey still not back?
No.
What's going on there? So strange, man. It really is a strange time, a strange PLE, strange card when you're recycling certain things, then other people seem to get the month off, or the night off at least, I think that's pretty much it as far as discussing tonight's show. Thank you for everyone that's joined us. We'll quickly run through some of these predictions again just to kind of cap off what we've said. So first of all, AJ Styles versus Edge. Dan and Lucas has gone for Edge. Myself and Rob have gone for AJ Styles and risking that bonus point, saying it'll be a DQ. Madcap Moss versus Corbin. It's been a clean sweep. We've all gone for Madcap Moss with a theory that surely he is there to basically go over and make a character. I say the word theory, then it kind of derailed me because it reminded me that Austin Theory's not on this card either. Well, theory, sorry. Moving on again to the next one. Omos got the clean sweep again. We all think Omos is going over. That's surely the reason why they've given him MVP. And then we've just been touching on quite a bit recently as well. Cody Rhodes versus Seth Rollins, where we've all gone for Cody Rhodes with agreement that they have built this character very well. So why would they let that slip anytime soon? And then we've got the I Quit match, which is going to be interesting if they do go the way we don't expect. And of course, we all would expect Ronda Rousey to win this. And that's because it just doesn't seem feasible that she would say I quit or that they would book her to say I quit. So if they do it, well, that would be very interesting. Don't get me wrong. And then going into what we assume will be the main event, the match that is for nothing, it seems, but I'm sure will be a bit of fun. And that is the Bloodline taking on RK Bro and Drew McIntyre. We've all gone for the Bloodline except for Lucas, who sees this as a potential way to have the Bloodline lose, but it not be too damaging, of course, with titles not changing hands. Brilliant. So it's been good chatting to you boys. I'm looking forward to the show a little bit more that we're running down the card. So these things always do help. We go into it thinking, I'm not sure about tonight. And then I end up thinking, actually, I'm quite intrigued by that, especially the potential of a Finn Balor turn, as one of the commenters mentioned earlier on.
Well, I think.
100%. So
a comment champion each time, mate.
Comment champion, yeah. All right, comment champion. Yeah, be like the 24/7 title. Brilliant. It's been great talking to you guys again. Thank you to everyone that's watched. And obviously, we're going off air now, just about an hour before the show. So anyone that watches on demand as well, thank you very much for you guys. Please subscribe if you're new. If you aren't new, hey, thanks for coming back, and we hope to see you again. Do you guys have anything you want to say before we get out of here?
No.
Oh, come on. All right, look, I've still got mine. All right.
New season now. So
New season. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Everything to play for. Exactly that. All right. Perfect. All right. Well, guys, enjoy it. WrestleMania Backlash. Can't believe I'm actually calling it that. And we'll be back here tomorrow for the recap and review. See you guys soon. Bye-bye.
Right.
Take it easy.
Welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. On this channel, we bring you some great content from inside and outside of the squared circle. We will go through and offer some in-depth analysis of the biggest events of the year, as well as bringing you exclusive interviews with some of the industry's biggest names. There will also be live show reviews, in-depth features, and podcasts. So make sure you give that subscribe button a slam so you don't miss any of the action.